It's very easy in life to focus on what's wrong. Tremendously easy to focus on what's wrong. The things that suck, the things that I wish this wasn't happening, or why can't this thing be happening? And in life, there's a way I want to say it that might not be 100% appropriate for right now. But we whine and we lament what we don't have so often. With little regard or thankfulness for the things that God has generously blessed us with. Amen. I want to let you know that I'm totally perfect in this area. I never do that. Never whine about stuff. But I'm kidding. I want to tell you about something I appreciate. First of all, there's several things I want to say, and this is totally unscripted, by the way. This is what happens when the Holy Spirit says, hey, pay attention. I want you to know, as a church body, that I appreciate Chris Nally being our worship guy. I'm very, very happy that he stepped in to do that. Very excited about that. I love seeing what God is doing in his life and how his life is changing and transforming, and how he comes into this place. He plans this stuff out. He plans the songs out that we sing. He plans out our musical prayers to Jesus, and I'm very excited about that. Now, we could all whine about, oh, we went through a transition and it was hard and it was weird, but man, didn't God put a blessing in our life about that? I'm so thankful for you, Chris. I'm also super thankful for Garth. He's one of my better friends. He's an elder at this church, and he is the kind of guy that no matter what time of day you call him, he's not going to answer the phone. He's not going to answer the phone. He's so busy. But when you talk to Garth and you open your heart to him, he responds in kind. He opens his heart to you. You get to hear his journey, his struggle, how he came to realize that Jesus loved him. And I want you to know, Garth and everybody else, that I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud that we get to do this together as co-workers, as friends, and I'm very excited about that. And I'm saying this stuff because I'm so tired of the complaining. I'm tired of the whining about everything. I want us to change the story. I want us to change the ticker that goes along the bottom of the screen of our life. I want us to change that and be thankful and be appreciative of what we have. I am so thankful for this church. I'm so thankful that I get to be your pastor. I count it as a privilege. I mean, an extreme privilege and honor to get to be the guy that stands up here and tells you about what Jesus said. I am no more special than anybody else. The other day somebody said, hey, I've got a golf tournament. Can you send some prayers up to the big man for no rain? I was like, no, but you can do that as much as you want. You have the same access to God that I do. But I just am saying this because I want us to change the narrative about our life. I want us to look for the things that are good in our life, the things that we can be thankful for, the things that we can say to Jesus, thank you for blessing me with this thing. Because undoubtedly, there are many of us who have those things in our life. And if we stay focused on the stuff that's not happening how I want it to, then we will never be thankful. We will never be grateful for the things that God has given us, the things that God has blessed us with. And so I love our community. I love the things that we're doing here. How many of you guys saw me on the news on Saturday morning? Big time TV mogul with a 6-minute interview. PB&J 500 is what I was promoting. And I could whine that we're not halfway there yet. Or I could be thankful that we have 170-something peanut butters and 130 30-something jellies, I think. Okay, so I was wrong a little bit, but there you go. That's our totals right now. And this happened last year. We were about halfway through the month, and we were nowhere near our goal. And then our church and our community and everybody responded, and we crushed the goal last year of raising 500 jars of peanut butter and 500 jars of jelly for the food bank of CNY. So I know you guys are promoting that all over Facebook, and I know some people have brought in checks. That money will be used to purchase peanut butter and jelly. And so if you're not a shopper, you can certainly hand me or Kimber or Garth or anybody, you can put it in the basket, a check specifically for peanut butter and jelly, and we'll take care of that. We'll do all the shopping. It's really fun to spend other people's money. All right. So that's that. Very excited about peanut butter and jelly. Excited about Kids Camp. Kids Camp this past week was fantastic. I mean, we had almost 40 kids here. And in a church of 160, 165 people, 40 kids is a tremendous amount of kids to be involved in that. And what is it, 20-something volunteers too? 25 volunteers? Anybody know that number? Randy, you don't know that? I don't either. But it looked like 20, 25 volunteers, so I'm very excited about that too. Very thankful for you guys. I can see your faces. So many of you were volunteering on Thursday for Kids Camp. And I really, really appreciate that, and I know Jesus does too. So we're doing this series along with Kids Camp. Last week we talked about the woman at the well, because on Thursday they talked about the woman at the well and Jesus interacting with her. This coming Thursday they're going to talk about a man named Zacchaeus. How many of you have heard of Zacchaeus? You've heard of Zacchaeus in the Bible. Okay. Not a lot of people have heard of him. He's got a very small, very short story in the Bible, but it's a very powerful story. I think it's something that we're going to be able to relate to today, and I pulled out some points that I think are going to be valid for us today. If you want to turn in your Bible, you can turn to Luke chapter 19. This is going to go well if I don't know what book we're in. Luke chapter 19, verses 1 through 10. If you have the Row Bible, the one in the seat pocket in front of you, it's page 852. And if you're using the YouVersion Bible app, you can go ahead and open that up as well. All right? Any questions? Can everybody get there? By the way, we haven't said this in a while, but I want to say it again. I want to remind our church body about this. If you have questions during the sermon, just simply make a little motion, and I will stop. And we will answer your question, and then we will move on. And I might even say, I don't know. There's plenty of stuff that I don't know about the Bible and all that. But it's a tragedy in my mind if you leave here confused about something that we talked about up here. Okay? Does that make sense? Yes? Okay, good. Luke chapter 19, verses 1 through 10. Let's read the story of Zacchaeus. But first, let me give you a little background as to what's going on here. Jesus is traveling to a town called Jericho, and on his way to Jericho, many different things keep happening. Little children come up to Jesus, and the disciples try and shoo them away. And Jesus says, no, let the little children come to me. Don't harm them. Don't bother them. Let them come to me. He talks to people about giving them eternal life. He talks to people about giving them sight. He tells his disciples that we're going to Jerusalem, and I'm going to die. I'm going to die when we get to Jerusalem. And his disciples, so thick-headed, they didn't get it. So Jesus is traveling, which, by the way, traveling is tiring enough, let alone with flip-flops and Jerusalem rock dirt stuff, right? You know what I mean? I can't walk down the hall with flip-flops on because I don't know how to do it, apparently. Because I have the loudest flip-flop walking motion. Apparently there's people who can do that really stealthily. Is that a thing? Is that like a class that I missed in high school or something? But I can imagine traveling all this way, and as Jesus is traveling, he's getting constantly bothered. He doesn't see it as a bother. I would see it as a bother. Jesus, can you do this? Jesus, can you give me sight? Jesus, can you do this? If you moms in the room right now. Mom. And don't you just want to you kind of understand, right? A little Benadryl in the milk at night. No, that would be too easy. But you understand that. You understand that emotion. And so I imagine Jesus in my imagination, he's feeling a little bit of that. With all this traveling, all these things are going, people are constantly wanting his attention. People are constantly asking things of him without even volunteering anything in return, which that in and of itself can be frustrating. And so we get here to Luke chapter 19, and we get into the story of Zacchaeus. It says, Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was what? Wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was what? He was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, come down how? Immediately. I must stay at your house today. Now, I have to ask myself why. Why did Jesus must have to stay at Zacchaeus' house today? Why is this a thing? He didn't say, can I? He didn't say, I need some lodging. Jesus' words were, I must stay at your house today. And so I thought about that. Why does Jesus have to stay at Zacchaeus' house? And I think the answer is very simple. Zacchaeus is a hated man in town. He's the tax collector. And I think Jesus must had stayed at his house. And Jesus had to stay at his house so that he could show the crowds that God's love is for everyone. He wanted a display. God's love is for everyone. So I'm going to find a guy who everybody hates, who everybody reviles, who nobody wants to be around, who is the most annoying person to see coming at you, and I'm going to stay at his house. I have to stay at your house. And verse 6 says, so he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, he has gone to be the guest of a what? He has gone to be the guest of a sinner. Here's another reason to love Jesus and just how he does what he does. He does not care what is supposed to happen. Last week we talked about the story where Jesus interacted with a Samaritan woman. Not only was he not supposed to talk to her because she was a woman, but also because she was a Samaritan, and the Jews and the Samaritans were supposed to hate each other, and Jesus couldn't care less about social stuff, about what you're supposed to do, because Jesus loves people more than he cares about what you think about him loving people. This guy.
He's God.
What is he thinking? He cares nothing for what is supposed to happen. He cares greatly for people. Verse 8. Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back what? 4 times the amount. Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. And read the last verse with me. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. That's Jesus, by the way, in case you were wondering. The Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. And Jesus said, I must stay at your house. Because that was the day that salvation came to Zacchaeus. And I had thoughts about this passage. I had thoughts about what happens when Jesus comes to town. And so I want to say these 3 things, because I'm a preacher and you do 3 points in a sermon, or you might as well quit. When Jesus comes to town, Jesus sees the unseen. When Jesus comes to town, Jesus sees the unseen. Zach's issue, I'm going to call him Zach, it's a little bit easier. Zach's issue in this story was, first of all, he was too short to see over the crowd. It was a limitation of his. It was a stumbling block to him. It was something that he could not, quote unquote, get over. It's a limitation that could have stopped him, but it didn't. Now, beyond him just being short, his other limitation is that he was a tax collector. Tax collectors in 2017, are they our favorite people? Or unless they're giving you money back, then you're like, yay, tax collectors! You're giving me money. So, but if you got to stroke a check back to the government, there's like, you write it all scribbly, like it's hardly legible, so they have to like really look at it. You do all that kind of stuff. And so in this time, it was a little bit different because the government would kind of farm out these jobs to tax collectors, and the tax collector was responsible for a flat rate of tax for the people. So he was responsible for a certain amount of money during a certain time period, and anything that tax collector took in over that certain amount was his money. It was his profit. And so he could go out and he could extort exorbitant amounts of money from people, and nobody had any control over it because he was the tax man. He was the guy who went out, took what was belonging to the government, and took what he wanted as well, and nobody wanted to be around him. In fact, people hated the sight of him. There was zero chemistry between him and the people of the community. You ever at work or something, and there's that person, and then you're walking down the hall, but it's just the two of you? So it's that you see them coming, and it's like, I wish there was a bathroom for me to duck into or something. But that person that you have no chemistry with, and you're walking down the hall. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Right? You've felt that before. I'm not just speaking into thin air, right? So you know that, and then what do? You go by and you're like, you make a little face, and you're like, or if you're from the South, you go like this: "Hi, how are you?" Okay, and then you keep going. But these people become unseen. The tax collector, nobody wanted to be around him. Nobody wanted to see him. Nobody cared for Zacchaeus. And so these two limitations were blockades for him to be seen by Jesus. He was too short, he was a tax collector, and no one wanted him around. Ultimately, Jesus sees him and invites himself over for dinner. Not even like, hey, you got plans tonight? No, I'm coming to your house for dinner. I have to do it. So Zacchaeus had these issues. He was short, he was hated, he was unseen in the community, but Jesus sees the unseen. So let me ask you this. What are our limitations? What are the things that keep you from being seen by Jesus or allowing Jesus to see you? Height should never be one of them. But what limitations might you have? What do you allow to keep you from Jesus? And the reason I use that word allow is because nothing can keep you from Jesus unless you allow it to keep you from Jesus. You spend too much time doing stuff. Travel here, travel there. Well, I can't go to church because we're going to camp this weekend. And but you know what? Syracuse Nationals is in town, so I'm not going to be at church today. That stuff happens after church, by the way. I don't know if anybody knows that. It's not like all the cool stuff is going on while you're here. You can still go and be a part of that. Your limitations, are you limited by the kids' activities that you sign them up for? Are you limited by work? Are you limited by TV time? Are you limited, are you limited by an addiction? Are you limited by a love of money or a love of self? Are you limited by your own attitude towards Christ and toward Christianity and towards surrender to Jesus? Are you limited by your arrogance? Are you limited by the mistakes of your past? Are you limited by a mistake that has been done to you? None of these things are limitations unless we allow them to be. Every limitation is nothing more than a paper tiger. A paper tiger is a metaphor for something that appears fierce, but is actually ineffectual in its attack. It's something that appears ferocious. It's going to take you down. It's going to take you out. It's going to hold you down. It's going to stop you. But actually, when you turn and face that paper tiger, you realize that it's actually nothing and that it can be defeated with almost no effort. You only have to make the decision to defeat the paper tiger. And I think every limitation, under the grace of God, every limitation is nothing more than a paper tiger. It looks intimidating, but it's nothing to defeat it. Paper tigers, all of those things that I just listed, all of those things that I just talked about, paper tigers, all of them are defeatable, even if you only have a microscopic grasp on the power of God. If you have but a microscopic, and I can't even put my fingers close enough to do what actual microscopic is, but if you have only a microscopic grasp of the power of God, these limitations, whether perceived or real, cannot, will not hold you back from being seen by Jesus. But this is what you allow or don't allow these things to do. So when Jesus comes to town, he sees the unseen. When Jesus comes to town, he loves the unlovable. On numerous occasions, Jesus is referred to derogatorily as a friend of sinners. A friend of sinners. He was known for spending time with prostitutes and tax collectors. Jesus invested his time on earth with the people that we might think least deserve his time. And certainly the religious people of this day did not think that tax collectors and prostitutes deserved Jesus' time. But Jesus cares nothing for social norms. He cares only for people. Notice the shock of the people. He's gone to be the guest of a sinner. In some of the older versions of the Bible, the word supped is used. Supped. Jesus supped with them. He supped with the sinners. In the breakdown, the etymology of that is pretty obvious. He dined with them. He had supper with them. He spent time with them. He invested his life into them. See, when it says that Jesus supped with them, it's so much more than what we do when we see somebody that we kind of know. You know the story, right? Sup? How you doing? You don't care what's up with them. You just have to say something so you don't walk by and casually make eye contact with them in such an awkward way that you want to die. But Jesus not only called people down out of trees, he went into their homes and he lived with them. He supped with them. Having a meal with someone is I think it's one of the most intimate things that you can do with another person. It's a tremendous time to talk, to find out what's going on in their life. And Jesus did that with the people who were most hated in this society. He did it with sinners. But why sinners? Why did Jesus choose to do this with sinners? Admitting sin requires, among other things, humility. Admitting sin requires humility. And I think humility is required to accept Jesus, because if I'm arrogant and prideful, I don't feel as though I have a need for Jesus. And so I have to have the humility to say, I'm not perfect. I'm not going to be perfect. I need a Savior. And so Jesus hung out with people who knew they were not fine. These people that were so terrible in their society, the prostitutes, the tax collectors, the drunks, these are the ones that Jesus chose to hang out with. He chose to sup with them because they had enough humility to realize that they weren't fine, that they needed a Savior, that they needed Jesus. Only a humble person can call on Jesus, because only a humble person recognizes their need for him. And Jesus himself even said in another passage, I did not come to call the healthy, but the sick. So this is why Jesus spent time with sinners. Those who were looked down on in society were the exact ones that Jesus showed special attention to. Those in need of anything, food, water, clothing, security, love, any of that. Jesus chose to spend his time with them. Because when Jesus comes to town, he loves the unlovable. Lastly, when Jesus comes to town, he forgives the unforgivable. Zacchaeus took the initiative to make amends, right? He took the initiative to make amends. I'll pay back whatever I stole. I'll pay back 4 times the amount. Whatever it takes, I'm going to do this right. Now, I don't know if you understand that. If you, somebody have $1? All right, you have $1 bill, John? Thanks, you're not getting this back. If I stole this from Jonathan, this $1 bill, and I make a promise that I'm going to pay back 4 times the amount that I owe him, that means that I have to come up with how many other dollars? 3. 3 more. I have this one, I have to come up with 3 more dollars. Is that math correct?
Yes.
Close enough? Okay. Right. So, Zacchaeus is effectually putting himself on the street. You understand that? He's paying back everything that he stole, and he's doing it at 4 times the amount. What does that mean? He's going to have to sell his house. He's going to have to get rid of everything he had. He's basically going to become a homeless person. Because if he stole $1, he's got to somehow magically find 3 more to pay Jonathan back 4 times the amount. Is this not amazing to you? He is putting himself into a life of poverty so that he can be right with Jesus. So that he can be right with his community. To me, this is an amazing thing, requiring vast amounts of humility, and even more than that, tremendous amounts of faith that Jesus is going to take care of him no matter what. He's going to become homeless. He's going to become poor. He's not going to be a thief anymore. He's going to be humble. He's going to be loved by his community because he's taken the initiative to do this. I think that makes Jesus happy. When we screw something up and try to fix it, I think it makes Jesus happy. Somebody was telling me a story yesterday about an argument with their boss and then going back later to apologize to their boss. I think that makes Jesus very happy. You want to talk about something that sucks to have to do? Go back and apologize for something that you did? That ain't fun. Not fun. But I think that humility makes Jesus happy. And so what does Jesus say? Today, salvation has come to this house. Today, salvation has come to this house. Now, I'm not 100% sure what that means. I don't think that Zacchaeus achieved eternal salvation because of the work that he did, because salvation is by grace. But I think the salvation that Zacchaeus received is the freedom from the guilt of what he had done. Have you ever confessed your sin to somebody? Have you ever had a thing that you then finally told somebody about, maybe even the person that you offended, and then you feel like you can float across the room after that? That's the freedom I think that Zacchaeus felt here. Salvation came to his house because he was forgiven. And I don't know if he was forgiven eternally by Jesus. We just don't have that whole conversation written here. But we do know that through his town and through his community, he felt the forgiveness that he wanted and needed. And it was because Jesus was in town. When Zacchaeus interacted with Jesus, he became free, even though he was unseen, unlovable, and unforgivable in his community. Security comes when we interact with Jesus. We become visible to God. You ever feel invisible? I'll tell you a time when I feel invisible. If I'm standing in the kitchen and one of my kids is there and they need help opening something and they walk past me to go find mom. I hate that. But do you feel like guards, right? When you feel invisible, you're the person sitting in the corner of the room while everybody else is laughing. And I imagine Zacchaeus spent a lot of his life that way. Security comes when we interact with Jesus and we become visible. Love comes when we interact with Jesus and we realize that we are loved. Wherever we've been, whatever we've done, whatever we're doing, it doesn't matter. Jesus still loves you. Jesus still wants you. Security comes when Jesus arrives. Love comes when Jesus arrives. And forgiveness comes when we interact with Jesus. Freedom. We're forgiven. We're no longer bound. We're no longer slaves to our sin when Jesus comes around. Salvation comes when Jesus comes to town. It's a simple story about a simple man doing his job, stealing from people, and then finally interacting with Jesus and feeling the release of salvation. I don't know where everybody is in this room right now. I don't know what's going on in your heart, but I want to leave you with this note today. Wherever you are, whatever's been going on, whatever struggle you've been having, whatever levels of forgiveness that you feel like you've not achieved or received, whatever lack you feel might be in your life, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. He sees you when you feel unseen. He loves you when you feel unlovable, when you least deserve it. And He's ready to forgive you. So I'm going to have the band come up now, and I just want us to just close with a prayer, a simple prayer today. As the band comes up and gets ready to play us out with some worship. Let's pray. Jesus, we thank you for right now. Thank you for this simple story of this man who released himself from pressure, from pain, from society's thumb. Thank you that you showed up in his life to forgive him, to show him love, to show him value, to show him worth. And Jesus, I pray right now, if there's people in this room who do not know their value and worth, that you would show up in their life right now in a mighty way. I just call that out. I call that out right now. I want you, Jesus, I'm begging you, please, for the people who don't know it, the people who feel like they least deserve your love, your forgiveness, your mercy, your grace. Right now, Jesus, I pray that they would know it. They would know it. I know there's people in this room that are yet to turn their life over to you. And Jesus, I pray that through your Holy Spirit, you would work in that. You would work in them, and you would break their hearts and turn their hearts over so that they would say yes to you, so that we would all, no matter where we are in our life, that we would humble ourselves to give our whole entire lives to you. Jesus, we thank you for accepting us as we are, and we thank you that you don't leave us there. You grow us beyond what we used to be, and you turn us, you mold us, you shape us into the thing that you want us to be. And you start from ground zero. So thank you for that, and for loving us, and for caring for us, and for always being here. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Hi, I just have a few announcements I want to share with you this morning. We have a couple of things going on today that I want to give you reminders for. The first one is right after second service, our hospitality and our greeting team is going to have a meeting. And so if you're somebody who is outgoing and you just love talking with people, this team's for you. So you are more than welcome to join us as well and meet our team leaders, Sarah and Jen. So it's going to be around 11:45. We'll feed you the whole bit. So that's today. Also tonight, if you signed up for Ladies' Night, tonight we are making planters, decorating them, and planting succulents. And this is for our youth fundraiser. So don't forget, if you signed up, it's tonight at 6:30. We'll see you then. And also coming up for Kids Camp, we are ending Kids Camp with a movie night. This is not just for kids, it's for everybody. So you get to bring your own picnic. We'll provide the movie and popcorn. So come hang out with us on, I think it's the 29th. Yes, yay, I got it right. And so that's coming up. And then the last thing I want to tell you about is one of the really cool things about ministry that I absolutely love is getting to see people answer to God's calling in their life. It's really cool because you kind of see somebody step outside of their comfort zone and their boundaries to listen to God's call. And so I want to introduce you to somebody who's done that. Mary Hawks, if you would come up here. So if you notice around the room, there are connect cards that are at the end of every rose. And on the back side there is a section there that you can fill out for prayer requests. And we did previously have a prayer team, and due to life circumstances, that team kind of changed a little bit. And Mary had it on her heart to lead that team and to start praying. And this really was outside her comfort zone, but she really felt like this was something that God was calling her to do. So I'm really, really excited to introduce you to Mary.
So we're going to start meeting Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock. If you would like to come and join us, please feel free to do that. We're not going to ask you to pray in front of anybody or anything like that. We get cards submitted with prayer requests on them, and then we also are going to be praying for the church, for Wayne, for Kimber, for Amber, and for our church family as it comes along. So we'll be doing that, and then you just come, show up. We'll pray. You don't have to pray in front of anybody, and we'll send you home with like a little assignment of some people that you can pray for throughout the week. And something else I want to say, but I can't remember now. But that's okay. So anyways, 7 o'clock, Wednesday nights, come, show up, and we'll be there. All right, and if you have a prayer request, please feel free to submit it. There will be people